amongst family and friends, which is brilliant. So it's so good to see you all, and how great to be able to do this. Just showing again that as I said before in the opening, when we were just starting, that we are actually living the future of work, and it is always evolving, because an hour ago the world was a different place. Well, those of us in Bondi anyway. So it's so great to have you all. We managed to do this. It's an incredible opportunity to all be together again, even though it's not in person. And of course, hugely kudos and such an amazing effort by Capgemini and all of you for getting that done, and all of the comments and the insights. I don't think I've ever seen anything happen so quickly in 27 years of the circle. So thank you so much for the incredible effort. It's wonderful to have Roy with us. Hi, Roy. And Sam from Newcastle, and all of you coming in from Brisbane and Melbourne and Sydney, and at least this way we can be together. So just on behalf of us all at the circle, really the opportunity to get away for that week, and now looking back, how we managed to squeeze it in between two lockdowns in Melbourne and Sydney is quite amazing. We've been so lucky that we had that time together, and now here we are. So that's about it from me. I just want to thank you all for making the time today, and of course the efforts in getting all the information to Cap to put this incredible report together. So what's going to happen now, I'm going to hand over to Naomi, who's going to talk a bit about just the overall themes. We're going to then have the official launch of the report by Lysandra, and then we're going to have a moderated discussion with Nicole and Joe, and open it up to all of you for some commentary and some feedback. So that's it from me, and I'm so glad Johnny's here to witness the joy of bringing this amazing group together. And of course, thank you to our Silicon Sisters for coming on as well and seeing what the group after you did. So over to you, Naomi.
Thanks so much, Tanya. And we were to be hosted in our workspace. So the background image you can see is actually in our community space. And that's, but I'm actually from home. So we would have loved to have welcomed you and have David really share some of the thinking about what we believe work now looks like and how we experience work. And as most of you remember, we sent out, and we've upgraded, so I'll send it again, the Experience of Work white paper. And the sorts of questions that we're asking ourselves is what's right for our organisation and our community, particularly around if we are not all coming together all the time. And as David says, I just can't feel the pulse of the organisation. And how do we know that our team members are being successful, and how do we know that we're playing at an optimal pace as well as an optimal level? At Big Red Group, we're currently seeing unbelievable growth in our business, which is wonderful, but do we know that we're actually setting ourselves up for the future? Is there more there, or are we running so hard on the near term that we're not thinking to the future term? So the sorts of questions we've been asking ourselves as leaders is about, if we want to recruit from anywhere and everywhere, and geography is no longer a boundary, how do we create team? How do we create collaboration? And for us, it was about creating this workspace where people could come, and it was an extension of their home, and that they were very comfortable and able to gather, whether it be in lounge chairs or around a table tennis or whatever, that they could collaborate in a different way. We wanted to make sure that culture was the center of everything. We've heard it all before, that culture is king, and we know that culture deeply aligns to purpose, and that people come not for what we do, but why we do it. We also know that people are seeking opportunity when it comes to why they work somewhere. They're seeking opportunity for themselves, for their growth and their development. And as leaders, how are we ensuring that we roll that through? There's obviously innovation, is how do ideas come together? How do you get all the bright people in the room? We used to brainstorm new experiences, but with a bottle of red cordial. That really got everybody innovating, let me tell you. But when you're no longer having red cordial around the table, how else are you bringing people together? clearly connection is important. You know, I guess the sadness is all of the things that we're currently cancelling, if you're in New South Wales right now, as we honour and respect the program that our government puts in place. But also it's about leadership. And the old way of leadership is not the new way of leadership. And we had some really powerful content about the future of leadership. In fact, what are we going to leave behind? And are we consciously thinking about what should we set aside? What legacy? What do we not want to drag into the future? And what do we need to unlearn as leaders? And that is probably one of the most challenging things for all of us. Also, as we bring new people into management and leadership, what are the good habits that we're teaching people when it comes to intentional leadership? So we definitely understood that there is a predictability bias. We all have bias. We look at people, we recruit for people, and we have this bias. And that is a limitation when it comes to being inclusive, being diverse and inclusive. And now that we're not limited by geography, location, or time, how do we take away that bias and maybe the predictability? I'm the worst at it. I say, but we always do this at Christmas. You know, this is my 21st Christmas. And so just doing the same things we've always done before, especially as the speed of change and the speed of business goes forward, then that's not going to be sustainable for us. We also have often feared the red. We feared that things aren't going well. When things aren't going right, maybe not necessarily looking for learning, insight, and understanding. Even how we're compensating people. If we're compensating individuals rather than team or rather than group, perhaps we're driving the wrong sort of behaviour, as Dan Pink said, which was very much about making sure that people are prepared to take risks, not just do what they've always done. I know this for myself, that within an organisation, you can have artificial harmony. Everybody getting along very nicely and saying all the nice and right things, but may not necessarily be challenging each other for greatness. And this often happens when people have worked together for a very long time. I know that myself, is that people can get really comfortable and not necessarily challenge themselves. And what we are seeking is the best from our people. That we've seen ourselves that often our organisation structures are limiting us, that we're not necessarily coming to work on particular projects or teams or problems that need solving. We have these hierarchies, and how are we encouraging people to go through the organisation or even externally to find the right people or the right resources and the right skill set for what the job is that they need to get done now. And it's really, really impossible to predict strategy. If there's one thing that we know, this time last year, we were not in mega growth. This time next year, we don't know if we'll be in mega growth. So how do we ride these waves and not necessarily put all of the capital in one place that may or may not be sustainable? So staying agile in strategy is going to be very, very important. So these are some of the key things that I particularly got out of, and that we as a leadership team, I've just come back from the Big Red Group leadership offsite, and as our leaders challenge themselves to the next opportunity and the next horizon, is trying very hard to be aware of what we want to leave behind. We do see a world of opportunity, but we know that intentional leadership will very much be a part of it. What I found the most delightful, I think, with the program, and I've said this before to those who were there, is how powerful it was to kind of be in classroom in the morning, have content coming from around the world, but then to go and see it in operation in incredible organisations while we're in Newcastle. And if there's one thing that we can be very proud of is Australia, we do have the ingenuity, we do have the ideas, and we do have the opportunity. However, we've got to really take pride in the work that we do and uncover and question, could it be done here? Could we build this locally? Could we create this locally? And how can we support the small businesses and local community? So that was some of my top line things, but obviously how delightful it was. And at this point, I'm going to pass to the official launch, Susan, of the beautiful and really wholesome document produced by Capgemini. So pass to you now, Susan.
Thank you very much, Naomi. It's been a great privilege to be part of the 2019 and 2021 tours. And it's an absolute honour to be launching the report today. We're really excited to share with you what we've built together over the last few weeks and to talk everyone through the bones of the report and the outcomes from the tour. I'll hand over to Lysandra, who participated in the tour. Over to you, Lysandra. You're on mute, Lysandra. Classic.
Classic. Thank you. Can you all hear me now?
Yeah, thanks, Lysandra.
Okay, wonderful. Well, hi everyone. It's really wonderful to see you all again today. And look, for anyone who I haven't met, my name's Lysandra Schmudder, representing Capgemini, and we're really incredibly proud to be launching the Valley2Valley Women's Study Tour report for 2021. For Capgemini, I also say we're honoured to be a partner with the Trans-Tasman Business Circle for the second Women's Study Tour. And we're really thankful to Tanya and her whole team for the resilience you've shown to reinvent the tour for what was originally going to be hosted in Silicon Valley and now coming to the Hunter Valley. So thank you so much, Tanya, and your whole team. And also huge thank you to Naomi. As you've just heard, as our study tour leader, we really couldn't have dreamed of having a more inspiring leader, and we're incredibly grateful for your insights and your energy through the whole tour. So if we go to the next slide. Tracy, are you driving?
Yes, sorry, bear with me. For some reason, technology has failed me for a moment, but I will get there. Won't let me click. There we go, sorry. Got it. Have you got everything now? Don't know where Lysandra is.
Sorry guys, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, a bit of technology failure. My apologies. And look, what a tour it was. This amazing group of talented women from various backgrounds, we came together united in a shared desire to explore the study and the experience of work. And while it was originally chosen prior to COVID, we really couldn't have chosen a more apt theme. We had, as Naomi mentioned, a truly hybrid experience, leveraging technology to connect with global companies and startups in Silicon Valley, including Zoom, Salesforce, Capgemini, Workbook, Facebook, and many others. We also travelled locally to hear what the experience of work looked like for organisations large and small, including the Port of Newcastle, the Melt, Newcastle Airport and University of Newcastle. And very early in the tour, we found we were having lots of conversations that centred around purpose. And if we just go to the next slide. Purpose is the reason we choose to do what we do, and it's what motivates and drives us. At Capgemini, we're really passionate about our purpose, which is to unleash human energy through technology for an inclusive and sustainable future, which is why we chose to support the Women's Study Tour to drive courageous conversations and inspire the next generation of women leaders. As we spoke to organisations throughout the week, we found there were 3 themes emerged that we explore in our report. We dive into each of these elements and we explore why each is important and the next steps we can all take to advance them. If we can move on to the next slide. Okay, we should now be on theme 1, which is purpose and citizen experience.
Yes, Lysandra, the slides are moving faster than you can see, so I'd suggest to keep talking.
Tracy, I'll just check that you're able to move the slides.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's on the right one for you. It's on theme 1.
Over to the next one, please. So the first theme, I'll just keep moving on. I'm not sure where the slides are up to, but we'll keep going. The first theme that emerged centered on purpose and citizen experience. We learned that the pandemic really accelerated many organisations' plans to leverage technology and flexible working arrangements. Hybrid working models have changed our landscape. They've opened up the ability for people to work anywhere at any time. And people have more choice than ever before on when and where they choose to invest their talent. With the war for talent on, organisations are pivoting, moving to flexible work arrangements while also creating cultures that help people feel connected. We see hybrid models blending work and home life, where the workplace is transformed to a collaborative workspace to engage and interact with others. Many organisations now recognise the linkage between employee experience and customer experience. We heard research from Salesforce that 76% of revenue growth leaders rank employee experience as a top priority in the coming years. Above all else, be clear on purpose. Life's too short to do work that doesn't matter, and knowing what you stand for is what will win the hearts and minds of employees. Okay, next slide. So to theme 2, inclusive leadership. As people have more choice than ever before on where and when they choose to work, the role of the inclusive leader has never been more important. For organisations, this means the relationship and alignment of values between employees and leaders takes on greater importance. We heard many stories from leaders and organisations that are thriving in our new normal, that people look to leaders who are authentic, empathetic and transparent. Organisations that are pivoting and transforming, intentionally driving diversity within teams, creating frameworks to protect and nurture innovative ideas. With a rapid shift in employee and customer expectations, organisations are revisiting historical operating models, from how to digitise services to how to recognise and reward team members working remotely, measuring out. Okay, wonderful. Outcomes rather than outputs. We also observed how the relationship and collaboration between universities, industry and government are essential to nurturing innovation, establishing environments to create new prototypes, skills and ideas, but also the commercial and business model, grown IP to the world stage. Okay, and the third theme that we saw is that, and we learned that the experience of work continues to emerge. Organisations are thinking about co-working spaces where collaboration and innovation can occur, creating value differentiation between working from home and traditional offices. We're challenging historical business and operating models, rethinking HR policies, communication models, how we set ambitious goals, aim for great, to take risks, to think about skills needed rather than roles, and uncovering diverse talent that has gone untapped. Importantly, as leaders, we need to check for and remove bias in our language, in our technology, in our actions. Let's shift to inclusive language training and education in our classrooms, workspaces and boardrooms. We see an exciting future emerging. Let's make the experience of work inclusive for all Australians. And with that, we're now going to move to a panel where we're going to explore the future of work in a moderated discussion. And I'd like to introduce two of our 2021 delegates, Nicole Alley, Senior Director for Capgemini, and Joe Gaines, Area Vice President of Salesforce, to the panel. And it will be moderated by Naomi as our tour leader. So welcome back to the stage, and I'll hand over to you, Naomi. And just as we do that, please feel free to keep the questions coming through the chat box as we open up the discussion. So over to you, Naomi.
Absolutely. Look forward to posing some of those questions as well. Looks like I've got myself like a pussycat in the bright sunshine, just in the perfect spot. I can hardly see. The sun is out in Sydney. There's nothing to complain about. Gosh, we learned so much, but we also know that the speed of business is not slowing down. And if there's one thing that every leader is feeling, it is this pressure of making sure that they're staying informed. For me, in hosting this tour originally, it was about what can I learn, what can I learn, what can I discover? And I think this tour was not just about what can I discover, but how can I connect? And that was a very powerful message that I got out of that, this notion of the helix between academia, between government, between community, between business. And it's going to take all of us with a shared sense of purpose to be able to drive the economic outcomes we're looking for in Australia. And that real value, creation of real value, is going to require rapid iterations. We can't just do it the ways that we were doing it before. We've got to grow fast. We've got to learn fast. We've got to respond fast. And we've got to have a rhythm to that. People need to know where they fit into the team. And so accountability, whether it be OKRs or whatever, they need to know their piece of the puzzle so they can, as my business partner always says, get in their swim lane and they can swim as fast as they can and be allowed to do that with the resources that need to get it done. We've got to empower people to achieve that. We need people to take true ownership of the projects that they work on. No longer can we just tell people what to do and hope for their best work, especially when we can't necessarily see them. There's a difference between the sorts of work. Those who might be in the office versus those who are frontline, those who are retail-based, that there's different sorts of work, and we need to include all types of work, not just those that we think of automatically if we're sitting in offices, because we default to our own bias about what work looks like. Work becomes about outcomes. It's not just about outputs, it's about the outcome, and it has to be measurable because people need to celebrate. They need to feel absolutely fabulous about what they've achieved and their contribution, so they can go home, even if they are home, feeling like a winner. So why I came on the tour was to discover some of these things. And really what happened was I discovered so much more. But I'm going to pass to the panelists and ask the question of why did you go on the tour? Nicole, I know you'd heard about it before, but Nicole, why did you attend and what did you get out of it?
Yeah, thanks, Naomi. So yes, I'd heard a lot about the 2019 tour, obviously with Capgemini's involvement in sponsoring and Susan participating in the tour. I think for me, as you touched on, the kind of two key elements to why I wanted to attend. So connection was the first one, connection and networking and building new relationships. I think about, when I am my best self, it's when I'm connecting with people. Out of all the things I do in my role or in my life, that's really when I'm my best self. So I think these kind of experiences are absolutely something I kind of want to take by the horns, and this obviously had that attraction. In terms of learning, I think learning from others, obviously for personal development, for professional leadership development, and also that contribution that I could then bring back to Capgemini. So what learnings can I bring into my role in Capgemini as a leader in the business? I'd hosted a study tour. I'd been to Silicon Valley, taking a client there previously, so I understood the immersion and the value in kind of visiting other companies and learning from what others are doing. But on this, I was absolutely blown away with the depth of connection and the level of learning. And as you said, the triple helix, what we saw with local innovation, business, government, the universities working together in a region for real community impact and purpose. So I guess, yeah, for me, it's that sort of 1 + 1 = 3 philosophy and bringing those things back.
Jo, calling on you. Why did you attend the tour? What questions were you seeking to have answered? Did you answer them, or were more questions laid out before you?
I think as per the report, you know, I have this strong desire to advance women in leadership, and the idea of being away with a group of other female leaders who had experienced some of the same adversity over the past 18 months was really attractive. I think I had felt very much like I was sort of in my own bubble and trying to work through some things, you know, in my own way as a leader, and being able to step outside of that, you know, just being able to be together for a week was really something special, especially now as many of us here have just gone back down into lockdown. You know, I kind of remember that really fondly, and like Nicole said, that the power of connection. I mean, Nicole and I have met up multiple times since we live down the road from each other. Just being able to have those other people now in your network, in your community, that you can, you know, you can learn from, you can tap into, you can be really honest and real about where, you know, where you're struggling and where you're failing and where you're learning, and helping each other was amazing. And also at Salesforce, as we go through our own, you know, learnings of this flex working and how to be inclusive leaders, and how to, you know, all the things that we're talking about, just hearing other people's examples and hearing other people's experiences of that has been really, it's been a game changer for me.
Yeah, I suppose it was far more of a surprise for all of us of how much also we could squeeze into our brains in such a short amount of time. And, you know, we started pretty early every morning, you know, 7:30, 8 o'clock, the conversations were starting, and there was, and the conversations continued well into the evening. But what did you discover, Nicole, Jo, you know, what was some of the key, like, aha moments, or I hadn't thought of it that way, that really came out for you? Which sessions, which ones that you just want to remind the group of, and share with those others who here who weren't with us?
Yeah, sure. So I guess in a lot of the learning sessions we heard, and the site visits, we heard really consistent messages around giving employees a voice. You know, employees want flexibility and choice, and things will not go back to the way they were. There was a lot of research kind of quoted around stats for, you know, what companies have investigated around people wanting to work 2 to 3 days from home. So McKinsey research, you know, 65% of people, as we heard in the Zoom session, want to work from home at least 2 to 3 days a week. In the Salesforce research, we heard that was kind of 90% want flexibility. Interestingly, in Capgemini's research, we've found that almost 50% of our workforce do not want to come to the office regularly at all. They would actually rather work from home or work from a client site. So we heard a lot about this in the visits. We talked a lot about work, therefore, being a space and something we do rather than a place we go and, you know, activity. So I think for me that it was that confirmation of that. We obviously knew a lot of that. A lot of the research has been done pre-COVID, so and has been accelerated through 2020. So some of those stats though really brought it home for me that, you know, hybrid working is not a side agenda for executives. We really need to drive this as a core focus. But I think the big aha moment was probably the kind of what we heard around bias and skills and neurodiversity. This kind of, we can't just work on hybrid working policies and give everyone flexibility and choice and then expect that the job's done as leaders. We need to think about incorporating diversity and neurodiversity and making the experience of work in this hybrid new normal more inclusive. And, you know, that requires slightly different thinking than just here's the technology to do Zoom calls and kind of come into the office and here's spaces. So it's really more than designing collaboration spaces and kind of rolling out new normal policies. It's also thinking about bias and where skills are in different geographies, not necessarily, you know, in one place.
And I'm sure Nicole told me that she really enjoyed the Salesforce session in particular. Naomi?
Yes, pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. And one of the other stats that came out that alarmed me was that only 11% of leaders believe that their business model is going to be viable within the next 2 years. That was in the work board presentation, and that's therefore going to define. And I'm looking at Sam's question here now about, well, what does that mean for recruitment? What does that mean for how we develop people, how we bring people on board? And we really did have big conversations about that, especially in terms of the neurodiversity piece and not expecting, I put this on our channel, but not expecting people to go through a recruitment process exactly the same way as we've always done it, because that's, you know, building rapport with somebody who might be neurodiverse or disability as well. For me, sitting on the CPA board, it's a massive opportunity for people with physical disabilities to not have to commute to work and making sure that they're connected. But the recruitment process is really almost on a flip, which is especially when we came up with this whole notion of switching cost is so low. Like, you know, you got one laptop with one company one day and then you get shipped one out on the next Monday morning, and you're now working for a company in Boston instead of Baldwin. You know, just the switching cost for employees is so much smaller. And we appreciate that not all of our people are going to come with us, and that's actually a good thing. We need new ideas to be coming into the business, but that perhaps recruitment has really flipped, and that it's now not necessarily about this is how we go through recruitment. It's how do we understand whether you are best suited for this role, and how do you want to engage with our business? Because that might be that it's auditory or it's written, or there might be some other ways, not necessarily going through the same processes that we've always had. So really thinking creatively about how, like group interviews, bringing people on board in completely different ways. And that was one thing that we touched on there. And this is about giving up our legacy, is giving up the our norms of how we've always done it in every aspect of business. Just because we did it 2 years ago, if our business models are evolving this much and the rate of change is, then we also must be adaptable. So which was a great thing. Jo, what about, and maybe even Kathleen, if I saw you pop up there a minute ago, but why do we need these insights? I mean, I know I've just said about the 11%, but many of the businesses here are institutional, they're very large, but why do we need this now? Does it apply for everybody?
Hey, Naomi, Kathleen here. Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. I'm traveling today, but it's really lovely to see you all. And also the report, isn't it just incredible? I think we've done collectively a great job. And then to go to Naomi's question about why is it so important? I think it's through that power of diversity and new ideas and just bringing that all together. We can come up with things that we previously didn't know were even possible. I'll maybe stop there because I know my internet connection isn't that great.
Well, let's pass to you, Jo.
Yeah, I think maybe to take it in a slightly different track as well. This idea of like hybrid flex working, you know, came up so much over the week that you know, we now know that the office has really become a hub for collaboration and and home. And we don't want to sort of create these buckets either, I think, but home really does seem to be a place for productivity where people are saying that, you know, they can be most effective and productive. Having customer meetings for our teams at Salesforce from home tends to be a lot more productive. Naomi, you talked about, you know, travel time, cutting down that commute time. We actually went to a face-to-face customer meeting a couple of weeks ago, and, you know, we almost forgot what it was like to have all the dongles, to meet each other half an hour before the meeting in person, you know, to really figure out who was going to sit where, because we do think about all that stuff before going into a customer meeting. And it actually took an extra 2 hours along with the commute time to get there of planning and preparation. And we realized actually doing these from home can be quite productive, but we also got a lot of energy out of being together in a room. And I know even today, Naomi, we're really conscious of trying to create a conversation. It's just, you know, that much harder to do when everyone's sort of waiting for their turn to come on and off mute. The other thing we found is that Thursday really is the new Monday in the office. And so how do you then create spaces where, you know, people can come in when they prefer to come in? We've actually found, you know, even at Salesforce, that Wednesday and Thursday is about 70 to 80% of our team that want to be in the office will come in, whereas the other days of the week are, you know, sort of 50% or less. So really interesting that we're all craving this human connection, but we want that kind of balance and that ability to choose. And it's really unlikely that we'll have that sort of last person in the office hero culture really ever again.
Yeah, I get it. Absolutely. I don't know if that's the same for all industries, though. Especially, it's one thing for office-based people, but it's another thing for frontline teams, because obviously it's really, really different. But how do we begin to think differently? And what apart from our own workplaces, because we've pulled out 3 teams, but let's maybe move, how do we think differently as leaders? What does intentional and inclusive leadership mean? What did we discover about that? And I'm happy to, if anybody wants to put up their hand and I see it, I'm happy to go to them. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting for somebody to put their hand up on intentional and inclusive leadership, let me throw to you, Nicole.
Sure. So I think, you know, we have a unique opportunity to think about it in our own workplaces, but also in talking to clients and kind of helping them on those journeys as well. I think it comes back to purpose. So for Capgemini, purpose, as you heard, saw on the slides, you know, it's really core to our business and kind of everything we do. It's built into our operating model. And we recently surveyed people actually looking for information to help us with our net zero goals. So that kind of sustainability focus that we have as a business. And some of a data point we got out of that has actually changed behavior from our CEO and leadership now in terms of how they assess requests. So it's kind of asking information from teams, whether that's clients or staff, engaging them in that two-way dialogue that we talked about and giving them that voice, and then listening to that and really using the information to then shape your decisions and approach as leaders. So the survey we did told us that we asked the question during COVID, did you change your habits to be more sustainable while working from home? And 91% of people said that they took actions to be more sustainable. So now the flow-on effect of that into the behaviour, the sort of mindset shift that's created, is we now assess travel requests first and foremost for sustainability impact and carbon impact rather than cost. Obviously safety and COVID impact as well. But that kind of alignment to values and that shift, we know that that's what our people want. So that sort of, you know, thinking differently by listening to what our people are saying and then actually changing the behaviours in the workplace to reflect that is, you know, it keeps that engagement up.
I completely agree. And I suspect that one of the things that we really established was sitting still is not an option. And it's okay to make mistakes. And, you know, culturally, we don't like playing in the red. We get very scared, except for me, of course. I love playing in the red. Nobody else does. But, you know, we get a bit scared when we're getting out of these things. And it's going to take really bold vision. It's going to take courage. We need ambitious thinking, to quote one of our speakers during the session. It is going to take that, which can be challenging because there is a deal of fear around getting it wrong. But what we really did establish is that all leaders are going, it didn't matter whether the leaders were from university or from the port or from the airport, they're all faced with the same, not just commercial challenges, but challenges about how they evolve their business model and their business and bring their people with them. And that they're really challenged and to think differently and do things differently. And I think that's really important. Look, I'm going to, is there any questions? I didn't see any hands going up, and I'm surprised that you're being quiet. Oh, Wen, there you are. I see you, Wen. What question have you got there, Wen? Oh, and Stella's raised her hand too. Sorry, I missed you, Stella.
Are you saying Wendy?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You haven't got your picture on, so I can't see.
Oh no, I haven't. I'm holidaying in Byron. Sorry, but anyway, which is wonderful. And first of all, like, I want to echo what everyone else has said. It's an absolutely fantastic paper that the group that we had, I really think, brought to life at a very real level what's out there and the opportunity for us. I think your question in regards to intentional and inclusive leadership, you know, I really feel we don't need to overcomplicate this. You know, at a really basic level, I think leaders that feel it's a privileged opportunity to lead will really acknowledge and recognise their people. And, you know, as part of that, I think it is to see and feel what's happening with the people around you. And so often as leaders, we get busy and we get into the fold of delivering, and, you know, but a leader's role is to deliver through others. And the more that we can intentionally understand our people and take the time to understand what they need, what's going to help them be the best, us pave the way, I think is the way that creates inclusive workplaces. And sometimes it's not so much focusing on the numbers, but actually your actions as leaders, and you reap the benefits. And this has been around quite a long time. I think the Collins and Porras work of Good to Great, they talk about humble leaders, and it's very similar attributes to intentional and inclusive leadership, which obviously I'm a great fan for, because at the end of the day, that diversity of thought and the input of that broader group means we get bloody fantastic results. It creates a competitive advantage for organisations, so it makes good sense all round.
Yeah, completely concur. And Stella?
Yeah, thanks, Naomi. I just wanted to say that in relation to your early question around why did you attend the session, and then your latter question in terms of inclusive leadership are a little bit connected. So I'm considered as the Chief Curiosity Officer in our business. So I love to go out there and explore ideas. And as part of that, one of the things that has become interesting to me is this notion of a shift or a zeitgeist movement globally, where it is this rise of the effeminate. And I don't mean women. This is not a diversity thing, but the rise of the effeminate in terms of this really deep human need to nurture things, nurture our planet and protect it, nurture our plants, which everybody now has, nurture our animals, which there is a huge movement around, and also to nurture our people when we think about work. And so there is this shift that's happened around that. And to Nicole's point, where, the way that has traction is that we now consider travel arrangements in relation to sustainability as opposed to cost. So I think that in terms of inclusive leadership, it's really simply, in my mind, an extension of that, where there is this greater tolerance of differences in people and a support of them, and to be able to play on their strengths and integrate them as well. So
I completely concur that, and I hadn't thought of it in that language, but there is no doubt that intentional leadership is the fact that people aren't prepared to walk past things anymore, and they realize, you know, my personal motto has always been, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. You know, you can't just not take action, because so many people are watching as well, insiders and outsiders, inside your organization, but outsiders, and outsiders are just as prepared to have a comment about your behavior via social media or any other platform. And, you know, I'll never forget, you know, that photo of a turtle with a straw up its nose. And from that day forward, nobody had ate plastic straws, even though it's a very small percentage actually of the garbage that's in the sea. But it did start a movement, and you don't know where that's going to come from or happen. And so if we stay really intentional, really, and aware, then we can take action. So I'd like to ask this group, what the standout discovery points from the tour? And I want to think beyond just necessarily in class. Like I was blown away by how clean the port was. And I see Roy right there. Like, I just couldn't believe how this, you know, I don't know, is it the second busiest port in the state, is just so pristine and appears so clean. I was blown away by the energy at MESH, the Innovation Centre, like just their deep curiosity of how do we bring back the iterations of products so that we don't have to send things offshore. I was absolutely inspired by the people, you know, where we all got into our glad rags and looked fabulous at Amcor, at Amp Control, and their real, you know, their engineering approach to solving problems. So perhaps maybe I'll call on you, Jo. What were some of your standout, like, discovery points?
Oh, well, one that, you know, really was close to my heart, being a startup girl at heart, was certainly the Melt. Going in there and actually seeing the passion and seeing the innovation. You know, we talk so much about innovation right now, and innovation born out of COVID is really interesting, I think, in small business, and just the way that the team at the Melt are supporting that innovation, particularly in hardware. You know, I live in this world of technology software, and being able to see what they're doing with hardware was amazing. And I've had many conversations with people in my network about what they're doing and connecting them up to support them. And I just, you know, I was blown away by the community, and, you know, Sam and Lord Mayor Nuatali, you know, just that connection and the support that the whole area has to really lift and shift, and, you know, the plans they have for growth and how they know they're going to get there, what they need to do to get there, how connected everybody is. Everybody knows each other. Everybody understands the purpose that they're all driving towards. And, you know, when purpose was such an important part of the week, that just really helped us see it. You know, they say, in order for me to understand, you have to involve me. That to me was that was it, right? As we became involved in that community and saw how they're working together, and with you, Roy, as well, being that connection point for us, it was truly powerful. And the ideas that it sparked for me, and the connections that, you know, I'm starting to make, and I know I still need to make one for Sam. It's just like, I wish there were more hours in the day, because it's really, you know, that sense of community. I think we can take it into our own lives wherever we are.
And Sam, not wanting to throw you on the spot, but what were some of the outcomes locally after we visited? Was there any feedback apart from an article in the local press? What else happened as a result of our trip there?
So, two things. One would be the discussion that's now gaining momentum about the region not talking to itself, but actually welcoming more people from outside the region so we can collaborate and innovate. And we're using that as a real and recent example, Naomi. And as recently as this morning, and when I was on the airport board meeting, we talked about that. And Peter Cock, the CEO, gave some examples about where he's been doing it outside the region in Queensland and otherwise, and bringing people into our region to showcase what could be possible and reinvent partnerships for the future. And the second thing would be, really interestingly, and I've had a chat with Roy about this only recently, talking about regional opportunities for tourism, cargo, freight, not just opportunities for one particular asset holder, the airport or the port, actually collaborating and involving all of the regional stakeholders in that conversation. So, really bringing together a collaborative model so that collaborative model can collaborate wider. So they would be probably two examples since the visit. But besides the fact there's still a bit of a buzz locally about these amazing women that were in town and when are they coming back again, which is a conversation I'll need to have with Tanya.
That's great. Yeah, I think that I guess we don't know what we don't know unless we get outside of our realm. But I guess all of us on the tour realise that Newcastle and the region is a very, very well kept secret. Roy, did you have any particular takeaways as well? Standout discovery points of spending some time with us while we're up there?
Well, thanks, Naomi. I guess I'm just enjoying learning from the learnings because apart from being a very interesting, enjoyable and productive visit, the aftermath is important as well in reflecting on what you saw. And I wasn't with you all week, but I can see that everything that happened had a deep impression. And I think what everyone's saying is that if we're talking innovation, innovation isn't just about technology. Innovation in our organizations, obviously about strategy, how we do work organization and so on, but it's basically about people and how you develop talent. And it reminded me of a report that some colleagues and I put together for the Australian government a few years ago now as part of what was then called the World Management Study, led from Stanford and London School of Economics. It was looking at the relationship between management and productivity. And Australia didn't rate at the top of the rankings in terms of management quality, but it wasn't at the bottom either. But where it really was way down, and people don't, I guess, think of this too much, or they think we'd do better at this. We were right down the bottom when it came to managers and organizations instilling a talent mindset. Out of the 18 characteristics studied, this was where we fell most behind world best practice. And so the emphasis of the tour on how do we draw on the creativity and talent of our workforces and the people around us in a collaborative setting, I think was really a very important piece of analysis and observations that you did. And the old adage that culture eats strategy for breakfast, I think still applies.
Yeah, I think that's actually a perfect segue into, well, where to from here? So one of the reasons we wanted to soft launch this particular document straight away to everybody who was on the tour is so that you have the resource and so that you can use it in your organizations. But how are we going to take this information back? I mean, I could just, when I went back into the office, I said, oh, I've been on a study tour and I've learned this and this and this and this. And so it's going to take really inspiring leadership and understanding, even to share what we've learned and how we apply it. So let me start with you, Nicole. What, apart from the fact that you actually produced, Capgemini produced the report, but how would you flow through your organisation and individually within your remit versus the broader organisation?
Sure. So I guess, yeah, to the point of that question, obviously Capgemini has a kind of a program in place. We call it the new normal to roll out, pre some of these learnings, obviously, roll out flexible working policies, how we leverage our global integrated organisation so people really can work from anywhere globally on projects, and how we redesign our workspaces to be much more collaborative, and address that point you made earlier about commute time. In our survey, we actually found that the average commute time, not an outlier, the average commute time for our people was over an hour. An hour and 8 minutes was each way was the average. So this kind of expectation that people come to the office obviously doesn't hold true. So there's a whole program of work globally going on that will deliver on a lot of the things we've learned on this trip and that are contained in the report. I think personally, for me, one of the big aha moments or takeaways was what we heard in the Salesforce session around the best way to get your customers to love your brand is to get employees to love their jobs. For me, that, being in a client-facing role, that was kind of, a really great message that I think I can personally take into kind of every interaction internally and every interaction with my clients and our clients. So I think to amplify the message and share what we've learned, it's really about having those conversations. So having courageous conversations, speaking to personal network, professional network, inside Capgemini, outside with our partners, with our clients, sharing the message and I guess getting that, building on the momentum, driving people to have the sort of conversation we're having here today, and inspiring people in leadership positions to make changes, however small they are, to kind of create that critical mass of change in Australia.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, but it's also obviously about the execution, because as I'm prone to do, I get all very excited and I push, whereas actually understanding how this applies and sitting in the other person's shoes and how they can take that forward, because true leadership is always about how we inspire others to take action, and what that's going to look like. Jo, how are you going to share the information? Does this go back into Salesforce? What about other communities that you might be involved in?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I've been thinking about. And at Salesforce, not just in my world, which is, primarily sales, pre-sales, but also product and marketing and all the different departments, like this has ramifications right across the business, but also with our customers, with the not-for-profits that we work for, with the recruitment, the diversity and the types of talent that we want to look at. One of the things that came out of the Zoom session was, that people are looking for the word remote when they're looking at job ads and job listings. We've already gone away and started a project on that internally. Then, we like CAP, we have a lot of initiatives underway. We already have the Success from Anywhere, we kind of launched our work.com solution and all these things that weren't even in the works pre-COVID, and we just really moved our engineering teams to focus on them. And I think a lot of the things we saw really solidified some of the thinking. So we'll also use it to back up some of the thinking and the initiatives. And then things like courageous communications. We actually measure this in our leader impact surveys, but like, what does that actually look like now? Like modeling more of that for our people and our customers and our community. I think what we can now offer to organizations, not-for-profits we work with, is this knowledge. Take this knowledge and help them understand how to repurpose and reshape and refit their own organizations where they may not be able to show up to a study tour or get access to the types of things that we can. So how we spread the word, like you said, Naomi, beyond our own backyard, but into places where it will really, really help the community.
Yeah, and I guess it really is going to come from the top. And one of the things I want to do is boardroom briefings and take our content into boardrooms and present it on behalf of the group of really what is stopping us and how do we need to form differently and come together differently to change our approach. And I think that's one of the things. Who else wants to put up their hands? Who else has either taken it into their organisation, or how else are they thinking of using this document? I can't see any hands up, but that doesn't mean they're not. Is anybody waving? Is Kathleen there?
Tanya's waving.
Oh, good on you, Tanya. I see you there.
I'll lower my hand. I was just going to say, I actually started sharing the report. Actually, what was helpful was, Catherine, your images, how you've done that summary. And it was really, really powerful because it was quite different from what we would typically do and traditionally do within George Weston Foods. So I've actually shared it with my direct leadership team as well as my peer group within George Weston Foods. And I think they found it really powerful. There are some really, the way that I would say what's starting to happen is my own language has changed. So it actually starts with us, is probably my realization. It's about, what I've learned is things like employee experience drives customer experience. How succinct is that? How powerful is it? So I think for me, it's about sharing the report, sharing the findings in probably smaller groups, having that discussion. Some of these themes really resonated more than others. I saw neurodiversity was a major connector of people. People thought, in GWF, wow, we've never even heard of that, never thought about it. It's just going to generate different ideas, but I also think it's about us changing our language with the things that might have resonated internally as well.
Oh, I completely concur. And, I always think, obviously, a picture tells 1,000 words.
Yeah.
And also because it's different, it really stands out, and you could just talk to one or two points and then it really is easily to flow. I just also love the way it's not linear, because having to bring information to a conversation at the right time with some evidence around that, it's really easy to pick things out and have those really good conversations.
Yeah, and from those diagrams, I had folks saying, what's this? What did you do in that? And I had to actually, because it was such an information overload, I had to actually, it caused me to stop and think and go, okay, what did we actually do, and what did that mean to me? So yeah, it was just a fantastic way of having conversations. That's
great. Helen, is there something you'd like to say in terms of the outcome for your organisation, obviously as a sponsor, but also as taking that information back into your business?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's been great is that we're a global organisation, so having the conversations across the way. And it seems as though, in the States, this part of diversity inclusion is now part of our supply piece and the clients that we're dealing with, and we're being measured on that. So it's not only internally, but it's also the clients that we're taking on. And I didn't realise it was so far progressed over there in terms of what they're actually being held accountable for. And then when we talk about the neurodiversity, I mean, we're dealing with software developers, and the neurodiversity that we have is astounding and exciting because it's amongst us all the time, and having them present with us on calls, it's such a different way of listening to them, because sometimes they're not as animated and as excited as what the salespeople are on this side of the bench, but what they bring to the table is also just refreshing and exciting. And then having these images that Catherine's brought to the table has been great to share. And then I'm sort of dabbling around in it, Catherine, and I have to reach out. And I was so excited to come and see you all. And I'd kind of made little points along the way to catch up for lunches or dinners and some Pilates, but that didn't happen. So you know what, we'll just have to try and do some group Friday drinks at some point, and maybe a Pilates online one, Joe, that we can do together would be fantastic. But yes, taking that message back has been exciting. We were due to actually have our leadership meeting next week in Sydney. Obviously that's not going to happen, so we will do it virtually and we will share that. But you know, a big part of this, which is exciting for us, is that we're doing this work with the product that we're using in terms of measuring outcomes, and the big piece that it is ensuring the mental health of employees is well looked after, because working from home, you do feel so isolated, and being able to measure outcomes and provide that visibility, transparency back to your people is so important. And so that's the great gain. You know, we've always talked about it, and we felt like people thought that we were the big stick measuring what was going on, and it was a negative thing. But when we turned that sponsorship around, and when asked that beautiful question when we did our presentation about, you know, how important is sponsorship when you do something like this, it's really important. And now that language is with people, you know, this is what I'm achieving, or this is what I'm not achieving, and this is how I could do it better. And it's really opening up those borders for it not to be a stigma, but a way of celebrating successes. So all of what we've spoken about now, it's up to us now to take this to market and say, we've got a way to support you with it. So thanks for asking, Naomi. And I miss you all.
Oh, yeah, we're sorry about that. I'm just scrolling down. I see a few more messages. And Liz, I see you across there in Perth. What about, how would IBM, you know, more than half of your workforce works from home anyway, you always have. It's the way you've done business forever. What else can we learn? What else did you learn then? Because that was not new news to you.
Absolutely. And it's so lovely to see everyone. For us, I just think it really reiterates that a sense of purpose and greater purpose galvanizes a decentralized workforce. It can't just be about the technology that we sell or the services we sell. And I know we've spoken a lot about that, but it really is true, and it's harder than what you think. And I love Cap's purpose. Every time I see it, I was like, it's pithy, it's beautiful, it's easy to understand. And I really take a lot of, dealing with words all the time. I love it. I think, Cap's purpose is beautiful. So I'm certainly taking that back. As I said to my leadership, people who are sitting, at their kitchen table in the crossfire of, kids and life and trying to sort of steel themselves against that, they can't connect to open hybrid cloud and AI, but they can certainly connect to something around sustainability or inclusion and diversity. And I had really, great joy coming back to the IBM leadership group and sharing the early drawings. And I think, gee, that's a great starting point, a creative starting point, rather than spreadsheets where we spend most of our time in our cadence calls. So that in itself was just, a beautiful spot to start from. But an immediate response from my leadership was, well, we've got, we have neurodiversity and we're looking at other talent pools, but how do we show up in market when we're asking for certain skills? And it goes beyond just the language or driving out bias and using AI to do that. How do we actually design and craft jobs that don't exist at the moment that are going to be attractive to people and how we're working at the moment in this hybrid model? Like, is there something more we can do with not just a job description or, as I said, bias language, removing it? What are the components of a job that are attractive to people? And can we put them back together in a way where we see jobs differently in how we put them out there? So that's a piece of work we're doing at the moment. And it's really, energizing. It's so lovely to be working on something like that. That's a little bit outside of what I do every day. So that's an immediate outcome from the work that we did for the week.
That's great. I guess this is kind of the point, to use the channel so that we continue to learn from each other. We set up a LinkedIn page, particularly for the content, because obviously we've got a very busy chat group, but the content, the reports, and also as we come across other research and insights, just popping it on the LinkedIn page means that it becomes a resource for everyone and won't get lost in the feed. Now, Tanya, have you got a comment there? She's muted, but she's using a hand, so we know what she says anyway.
So just a quick one, just to say that obviously as the circle, we will be amplifying the messages as far as wide and as possible. To within our content pieces over the coming months and going forward. But one of the big outcomes is in discussions with IBM at the moment for the women, women who can't be on this program and couldn't come. So that ongoing leadership pathways program that we talked about for female leaders. So we've already started those discussions of what that program could look like, and using a lot of the learnings and a lot of the content that we had on the tour. So at the moment, we've had one really big planning session with IBM of how that could look. And I think it's a really great outcome that has already gained a lot of, I suppose, attention from our first preliminary discussion. So that's one big outcome. Going back to what Sam said as well, I just wanted to say that, Naomi, you talked about how did our message resonate in Newcastle? Well, a lot of the feedback we got from the thank yous from the Newcastle companies were how wonderful it was to see such an amazing group of women come through, that we actually brought to them so much content and insights and so much learnings for them to actually be inspired by. So it was this beautiful two-way discussions that were going on, and I think we're collating in the survey results that we will be sending you. We've sort of got them nearly done, and we'll be coming to you next week with the survey results. We will be giving you a lot of the feedback of some of the Newcastle companies, so you can actually see what they sent us back. But we made an impact, and they really appreciated it, and I think hearing it firsthand from them was amazing. So that's two big things that we're doing, and of course developing the Newcastle piece and what that looks like for the circle regionally, with Sam and Nuatali and of course Roy involved. So that's another conversation. So 3 big outcomes for the circle and heaps of work to do, and all thanks to you guys.
So wonderful. And now I think I might hand to Susan as we bring this conversation to a close, but I'm absolutely sure it won't be the last. Susan.
That's right, Naomi. Thanks so much for moderating that conversation. It's fascinating insight from so many. Really appreciate it. So it's been great to get together today. We're so immensely proud of the report we've produced together from this tour. Capgemini is really thrilled to be involved, and it was great to hear you, Liz, talking about our purpose. It's something we feel so strongly about, and it was really motivating, and it was good to see it come out as a theme in the study tour as well. Our promise at Capgemini is to get the future you want. And I think one thing's for sure, even from the discussion today, I think we all feel very motivated about getting towards that future experience of work. And so I hope that you'll join us in working out how we can all act on getting there even faster. We did include 3 suggested actions in the final stage of the report around thinking about what we can personally do to get to what's next, the actions you can take within your organisation to make the shift, and then also, as Naomi mentioned, the boardroom briefings, or even expanding your reach through socials or other influencing forums, even beyond your own role and organisation. They're all things that will continue to have an increasing impact. So we hope you'll join us in spreading the word about what we've learnt. I just wanted to share a few quick thank yous and then we'll wrap for today. So first of all, Tanya and the Trans-Tasman Business Circle team, outstanding as always to have this event and so many before it. And thank you very much for everything you're doing to move our agenda forward. Naomi, it's been an absolute pleasure to have been working with you on this tour and to learn so much from you. We're inspired by your leadership and so grateful to have you driving us forward. To Roy and to Sam, who played key roles, especially in the Newcastle component of this tour, thank you so much. To the 2019 and 2021 groups, let's add a third group in the not too distant future, and we'll be the bigger sisters of that group. So look forward to continuing the momentum. And then last but not least, how amazing is the report and the work that Catherine, Lysandra and Nicole have done. So we're so proud of what they've done. Thank you so much to the three of you. So I look forward to passing the baton very soon and hearing what's next, Tanya. But in the meantime, let's all take action and stay safe. Thanks very much.
See you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.